Hey, thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Let's do an audience poll. Who here owns cryptocurrency? OK, a bunch of hands. Who here is thinking about buying cryptocurrency? OK, everybody who owns it. That's a pretty even split. Nobody else who doesn't is thinking about it. But all right, so just by way of introductions, Dom, Dfinity, you are calling yourselves the Internet Computer, basically a decentralized cloud platform that relies on blockchain, where you have servers across different data centers. So it's sort of a decentralized data center. And that is part of the foundation of what you're trying to do in terms of potentially disrupting some of these big tech giants, whether that's Salesforce or LinkedIn. You're talking about decentralized versions of these big social media companies or Amazon, companies like that. Joe, you are a co-founder of Ethereum. You also run Consensus, which is a blockchain development company. But tell me, thinking about Ethereum, which right now is the second leading cryptocurrency, was this a goal? When you started Ethereum, because you hear a lot of people talk with blockchain about disrupting banks versus disrupting big tech. What was that part of it when you started Ethereum? Thinking about potentially a different type of Facebook, a different kind of Google, or how did that play into your vision?
Sure. So Bitcoin essentially invented a couple of things. It invented this next generation decentralized database and something called crypto economics, and a token that via mechanism design and crypto economics would incentivize people to essentially create a money. It was of the people, by the people, and for the people. And in that way, essentially build a maximally decentralized trust system. And so in 2012, many people came along and said we should be using this kind of database infrastructure for everything. And so of that, Ethereum was born, and we built essentially what we then called a world computer. And many since then, including us at our company Consensus, have built tools and infrastructure and have been building in different verticals to essentially do some of the things that Dom is intending to do, where we do go after these major services on the internet. But it's also much more than that, because we're bringing a new trust foundation. We're building a global settlement layer, and we're able to build a new kind of financial plumbing where we can we've issued essentially billions of dollars worth of digital assets on that platform.
Yeah. Dom, so the idea of an internet computer, we already have the internet. We already have Amazon Web Services. We already have Ethereum. Why do we need Dfinity, or the internet computer?
The internet computer is reinventing the internet as a computer that can host and run secure software with sort of range of superpowers. And these address major problems that are stalking tech today. So it's intended as a complete replacement to the sort of $3.6 trillion legacy IT stack, and addresses major issues such as the difficulty of creating secure IT infrastructure. It also addresses the difficulties we have with the monopolization of the internet today, and provides a platform to create a new breed of open internet services that will provide a better platform for innovation, entrepreneurialism, investment, and so on going forward.
So this idea, decentralization, to create a decentralized version of some of these huge tech companies, is there any evidence that a decentralized organization, you might not even call it a company, could rise to that level where it could actually challenge that dominance? The only example that I can think of is Wikipedia, and it's not even competing on the same level.
So the most powerful force in tech is network effects. And the increasing monopolization of the internet is kind of driven by network effects. So one approach to deal with that increasing monopolization of the internet is to bring in antitrust, regulation, and so on, and try and break up big tech. The internet computer provides an alternative means to address the increasing monopolization of the internet. by providing a platform for the creation of open internet services. An open internet service you can think of as being something roughly analogous to an open source project where the service itself has its independent existence and is managed by a decentralized governance system. Most of all, these things provide a means to address something called platform risk. So an early example, or harbinger of what was to come, was provided by Zynga. Zynga built on Facebook. They IPO'd. They're a very successful company. Facebook changed the rules. A few months later, they lost 85% of their value. Scroll forwards to today. 18 of the last 22 tech IPOs mention platform risk as existential threats in their S1 filings. And the problem is, if you build on the APIs, if you build on top of big tech, you're building on sand. You just can't trust it. And for example, recently, hundreds of startups, a few years ago now, had their access to LinkedIn revoked. And open internet services will provide a way to create, for example, open WhatsApp, open LinkedIn, open Salesforce. Taking LinkedIn for an example, an open LinkedIn would become part of the fabric of the internet itself and would be able to guarantee that its APIs would never, ever be removed or revoked. So that entrepreneurs and investors wanting to build new internet services that needed to incorporate business profiles can securely build on top of open LinkedIn. And this will create a kind of mutualized network effect, which will drive the development of the open internet forward very rapidly, in my opinion.
Who's going to build?
So the idea is to essentially build on protocol-based open platforms. If you're building on Facebook, you're building on a platform that somebody else controls, and they're probably towards the end of their monetization cycle, they're probably going to end up having to eat your lunch. And if you're building on TCP/IP, which is a protocol, then you can be relatively certain that that's not going to shift out from under you for competitive reasons. So Web 3.0, which will be the evolution of where we are right now, Web 2.0, will be lots of decentralized open platforms. It'll be platforms like Ethereum for trusted transactions, automated agreements. It'll be platforms like Dfinity. It'll be platforms for decentralized storage, decentralized bandwidth, decentralized heavy compute, decentralized identity. And all of these things, we can have the governance discussion soon. All of these things are currently contemplating massively decentralized governance, and that plays out in a lot of different dimensions.
Is there a business case, though, to incentivize the building of this? I mean, if it's decentralized, you don't have a CEO, it's not a company. Is it only nonprofits who can do this?
No. Protocol-based open platforms with this new invention of Satoshi called crypto economics enable the issuance of a token and effective mechanism design so that lots of different actors can pursue their selfish interests, perform different roles, and achieve the goals of the system. So you can achieve decentralized governance while still enabling people to pursue their own interests.
Can you make money doing it, though?
Absolutely.
I mean, put it this way. If you were an entrepreneur and you wanted to build a new business service that needed to incorporate business profiles, would you rather build on top of closed proprietary LinkedIn? I mean, you haven't even got that choice anymore because it's already closed all the APIs down. The only people with API access to LinkedIn are Salesforce, WeChat, Microsoft, and so on. But let's say closed proprietary LinkedIn still provided APIs. Who would you rather build on? Closed proprietary LinkedIn or open LinkedIn that guaranteed your foundations were solid and would never revoke your access and break your service, as LinkedIn did to hundreds of startups? What would you rather build on? That's the reason the open internet will succeed and triumph over the closed proprietary internet. And there's enormous numbers of engineers and researchers leaving places like Google, Facebook, IBM, Microsoft, partly because the technology is very interesting, but also because they believe in sort of taking the internet back to its roots, making it more open, creative, innovative, providing a better platform for entrepreneurs and investors. There's a huge movement, which of course is partly represented by the success of things like Ethereum and so on. And it's not going away. It's a part of a major transition to a different model.
Yeah, I'm going to come to questions in a minute, so get them ready, raise your hands, they'll bring you a microphone. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Ethereum, because it's the second leading cryptocurrency, which had this terrible crash, crypto winter, all of that. Started to bounce back this year, so Bitcoin's up about 160%. Ethereum's lagged a bit. It's only about 60%, still good, but it hasn't had the same bounce back that Bitcoin has. And I know you're still trying to scale. There's still questions about that. You are planning to launch Ethereum 2.0 starting early next year. You've also had some restructuring at Consensus a bit too, with some headcount reduction. But I guess in terms of scale, is this a technology that really can rise to the level where it could replace these huge platforms, Google, Amazon, some of the others?
Yeah, so it's fair to say that Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency if you only look at that dimension, but it's by far the largest blockchain ecosystem if you look at the number of developers and the number of projects that are building on the platform. We have scaled enormously even during crypto winter. So many of the people who were focused on the more speculative aspects related to Bitcoin or related to Ether or related to the many tokens that were launched on the Ethereum platform, some of those projects worked out well, many of them worked out quite badly, and a lot of the speculators have fled. Some of the speculators are coming back at this point, as we've seen. But all through that, the technologists, the entrepreneurs that have been drawn into the Ethereum ecosystem have stayed. Once you see the value of decentralization and building systems in different ways, you can't unsee that. You can't really go back to building on Web 2 architectures. And so throughout that period, our ecosystem has grown enormously. Throughout that period, enterprise usage of our ecosystem, we work in many different verticals, has grown exponentially. And so we've seen, even on a transaction basis, the hit on Ethereum is that it can handle around 20 transactions per second, but that's at layer 1, at the base trust layer. At layer 2, where we have many different technologies that anchor into layer 1 for enhanced trust, we're seeing tens and hundreds of thousands of decentralized transactions coming online on exchanges and games, et cetera. And so scalability is already here, and it's going to be here in spades when we release Ethereum 2, which gets started in its release early next year.
Yeah, thanks. Any questions in the audience? Did we have any? See a hand in the back, please. Yes.
Hi, Jeff Roberts, Fortune. I'd like to hear a little bit more about governance, which you sort of alluded to but didn't explain. If you're a decentralized governance, how can you build something that'll take on Google and Facebook? Because a lot of people say Ethereum governance has been dysfunctional. It's been years to create basic scaling. And what exactly are you going to do to put in a governance structure people can understand and possibly participate in?
Yeah, so the theory of decentralization is a very powerful one, but it does require good governance like everything else on the planet. And as I think we would all agree, governance is difficult. Governance of decentralized platforms is a new thing that we're trying to figure out. I feel like the Ethereum Foundation governance has been excellent. I believe that we launched an unprecedented platform in about a year and a half and have continued to improve it and have pioneered an architecture that will scale it enormously and essentially end up being a base trust layer for the planet. Governance on the Ethereum project is different from Dfinity, different from Polkadot in that we are focusing on having lots of different actors in different roles who are all incentivized to make the platform better, have voice, and I like the idea of more automated governance. There will be governance by token votes, and we already do some of that, but there are projects, and Dom can take it from here, there are projects that are contemplating building layers and layers of governance of these platforms, and I think it's going to take years to figure all that out. Ethereum will do the same thing, slowly and prudently, but even without that, I believe that many different actors all committed to improving the platform will be able to challenge the big entities who have perhaps a smaller number of highly incentivized actors. And as we get the layers of governance right over time, it'll be a foundation for many kinds of systems on the planet.
Dom, how is Eventual thinking about governance?
Yeah, so the internet, of course, has not-for-profit governance organizations like IANA, which give you your ASN number and IP addresses and so on if you're a ISP. The Internet Computer has automated algorithmic governance systems that serve both to ensure the Internet Computer Network, which is comprised from independent data centers, remains open. It's also a key part of the means we use to address platform risk, which is so important. With respect to the second part of the question, how can we compete with giant organizations like Google and Facebook? The Dfinity Foundation's strategy is to apply enormous resources to R&D. Although it's a not-for-profit organization, it operates, really uses the Silicon Valley playbook. We've got research centers currently in Zurich, Palo Alto, and San Francisco. There are more going live soon. We're hiring the world's very best researchers and engineers and using the best engineering research practices we can to deliver internet computer technology. So in that sense, although it's a not-for-profit, we work in exactly the same way. And indeed, we've been successfully hiring some of the very brightest and best senior people from places like Google. So
the thing, with Facebook, if they wanted to, they could ban somebody from their platform. If Google, somebody submits an ad that's fraudulent or a phishing scam, they can ban from the platform. What do you do about bad actors? What is your power, or what's the network's power?
So that's a difference between the Internet Computer and something like Ethereum. So the Internet Computer does have, the network has an onboard open governance system, and it is capable of neutralizing bad actors. There's debate about whether that's a good or a bad thing. Perhaps many libertarians think bad actors should be tolerated. And I wouldn't want to, I don't really have a firm position on that, but we do have the technological means to address that kind of thing.
Yeah, so from the start, the Ethereum project assumed that the vast majority of apps, transactions on the network would be valuable because they would be between significantly identified or fully identified actors. We've built infrastructure that enables us to issue digital assets in many different countries with full identity checks, AML, KYC, et cetera. And so we're bringing identity and reputation to these applications. But it's a deep philosophical issue.
Yes or no?
Should we have a base trust layer that is permissionless, or should we have one that is essentially censorable by government actors? It's a powerful technology, and our society, our different jurisdictions of our society are going to have those discussions and fit the technology in with their belief systems.
Your personal belief, yes or no, bad actors should be tolerated, yes or no?
That's a difficult question. Okay. I would say generally no, but who defines the bad actor?
Yeah, no, it's a question we'll have to, it's a longer discussion. That's all the time we have, but thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks.